Senator,
do you have the
if
power to say no to the president?
General.
And what you're suggesting today by your non-answer is you don't have the independence to say no to the president. So let me ask you a different question. It also requires you, if you're going to be a good attorney general, to be able to tell hard truths to the president. So my questions now are, can you tell hard truths to the president? So let me start with an easy truth that you could speak to the president. Can you tell us, can you tell him that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? Can you say that? Do you have the independence to say that? Do you have the gravitas, the stature, the intestinal fortitude to say, Donald Trump, you lost the 2020 election? Can you tell us that here today?
Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I won't do it. I won't play politics with any ongoing investigation.
So let me ask you another,
like you did leaking your colleague Devin Nunes's memo.
If you can't answer the question, let me ask you a different, what should be a simple truth, not a hard one. Was there massive fraud affecting the result of the 2020 election, yes or no?
Senator, I'm glad you asked that question, if you'll let me answer what I saw in Pennsylvania.
No, I asked a simple question about massive fraud.
I can only tell you what I saw in Pennsylvania.
I know you want to answer a different question, but my question is, can you tell us whether there was massive fraud affecting the results of the 2020 election, yes or no? Was there or was there not?
I can tell you what I saw when I went as an advocate to the campaign.
That's not my question. So you can't answer that question. You can't speak that even easy truth to us, let alone to the president. So let me ask you a different question. It will also be important that you give good advice to the president. Are you prepared to advise the president not to pardon people who beat police officers?
Senator, as I said, the pardons are at the direction of the president. We will look and we will advise. I will look at every case on a case.
So
let me finish. On a case-by-case basis.
Okay, good.
And I abhor violence to police officers.
Follow up with that. So will it be your advice to the president, Mr. President? I know you said you want to issue hundreds of pardons on day one. Will it be your advice to the president? No, Mr. President, I need to go over them on a case-by-case basis. Do not issue blanket pardons. Will that be your advice to the president?
Senator, I have not looked at any of those files. If confirmed, I will look at the files
and will you be able to do? Will you be able to review hundreds of cases on day one?
I will look at every file I am asked to look at. Of course you won't.
So will you advise the president?
Can I answer the question?
Well, my question
I would have plenty of staff. You said, of course you want.
You'll be able to review hundreds of cases on the first day?
I'm not going to mislead this body nor you.
All right, let me ask another question. You don't want to answer that. Let me ask another question.
You were censured by Congress, Senator, for comments just like this that are so reckless.
It will also be important for you to be able to preserve the records, the evidence of the department. Are you ready to commit that none of the evidence in the January 6th investigation will be destroyed under your watch?
Senator, I will follow the law. I will consult with ethical officials in the department.
Do you see any ethical basis to destroy evidence in the January 6th investigation? Then why can't you answer the question? Why can't you say, I commit to this committee, we will never destroy the evidence in the January 6th investigation? Why can't you give this committee and the American people that assurance?
Are you frightened because evidence was destroyed against President Trump that was false? Is that why you're frightened now? I can't believe this is even...
Why do you have difficulty answering that question?
I can't believe you're asking such a question.
Why do you have difficulty promising to preserve evidence at the Department of Justice? Why is that a difficult question?
I will follow the law.
It shouldn't be a difficult question.
Adam Schiff didn't start with politics. He started with a gut check. Can you tell hard truths to a president you serve? Can you say out loud and without hedging that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? Yes or no? What followed wasn't a debate. It was a stress test of integrity. Pam Bondi couldn't say it. Not that there wasn't massive fraud. Not that the evidence must be preserved in the January 6 investigations. Not even that blanket pardons for people who beat police officers would be wrong. She defaulted to process words. I'll follow the law, case by case, I won't play politics, but avoided the concrete commitments that prove independence. And that's the whole story. Here's why those specific questions mattered. An attorney general's first job isn't protecting a president, it's protecting the rule of law. Our system assumes a president will push, prod, and sometimes demand. The Justice Department exists to say no when the law says no. Schiff's questions weren't gotchas. They were calibration points, bright-line truths an apolitical law enforcer should state without fear or favor. Start with the 2020 election. Every credible audit, recount, court ruling, and state certification converged on the same fact: there was no massive fraud that changed the result. A candidate for Attorney General who cannot say that simple sentence is signaling something fundamental: the willingness to leave the door cracked for a lie to re-enter official decision-making. That's not a difference of opinion. It's an invitation to pressure prosecutors, reopen settled matters, and weaponize government power to relitigate politics. Then the pardons question. The Constitution gives the president a sweeping pardon power, but how it's used is not trivial. The Justice Department traditionally vets cases through the Office of the Pardon Attorney, weighing remorse, equity, proportionality, and public interest. Hundreds of pardons on day one is the antithesis of that careful process, especially if those pardons are aimed at people convicted of violence against police on January 6. An attorney general who won't say, clearly, that blanket pardons are wrong is signaling deference to political expediency over individualized justice. The correct answer isn't complicated. Advise a thorough review, case by case, refuse political litmus tests, and reject any mass action designed to reward violence. Now the evidence preservation issue. This isn't a trick, it's Governance 101. Agencies under litigation or investigation impose legal holds to preserve records. Destroying evidence, especially in a matter as consequential as January 6, wouldn't just be unethical. It could implicate obstruction and violate federal records laws. A firm commitment to preserve evidence is the floor, not the ceiling, for any Justice Department leader. All follow the law is a non-answer when the law already demands preservation. The plain English commitment Schiff asked for is part of rebuilding trust. No shredding, no deletion, no games. If you felt the temperature rise in the room, it's because hearings like this are where the quiet norms of American government get stress tested. We have a tradition of attorneys general telling presidents no. Think Elliot Richardson during Watergate. We've also seen the damage when that line blurs. When a nominee retreats into evasions on simple, factual, nonpartisan questions, they're not avoiding politics, they're importing it. Because the only reason to dodge those truths is to leave space for political demands later. There's a media literacy lesson in this exchange too. Listen for 3 tactics. 1. Reframing. When asked about massive fraud, Bondi tried to talk about what she saw in Pennsylvania, moving from a general settled fact to a personal anecdote that can't answer the question. 2. Process shields. Case by case, all have staff, all consult ethics, all valid in their place, but meaningless without baseline commitments. 3. Role confusion. I won't play politics. Sounds apolitical, but it's a tell if it's used to avoid stating a factual record the court's already settled. A non-answer is an answer when the truth is this simple. Human stakes hide behind the legalese. January 6 wasn't abstract. Police officers were beaten, staff hid under desks, the peaceful transfer of power was interrupted. Evidence in those cases isn't just data, it's a record of violence and accountability. And the 2020 truth isn't just trivia, it's the foundation of millions of votes being counted accurately, of citizens believing their voice matters. When leaders won't affirm that foundation, cynicism fills the gap, and cynicism is the acid that dissolves democracies. None of this requires hostility toward one party and deference to another. It requires loyalty to facts, to process when process is appropriate, and to moral courage when a bright line appears. Schiff's incredulity. Why can't you just promise to preserve the evidence? Why is that so hard? Landed because it exposed a basic question. Will the next Attorney General draw the line where the law draws it, or where the president wants it? If you're recording this, let your delivery slow down on the yes or no questions. Hold the silence after "Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?" Make the audience sit with the non-answer. When you get to pardons, emphasize the distinction between constitutional power and ethical use of power. That's where a lot of casual viewers learn something new. And on evidence preservation, be explicit. This is not optional, not theoretical, not partisan. It's the minimum standard for public trust. So here's where I land. If a nominee can't state that the 2020 election wasn't stolen, can't advise against blanket pardons for violence, and won't unambiguously commit to preserving January 6 evidence, you don't have an independent attorney general. You have a political shield. And justice doesn't survive long under a shield. Your turn. Does a refusal to say these basic truths disqualify a nominee for the top law enforcement job in the country? Would you trust a Justice Department led by someone who won't commit, in plain words, to protect evidence and reject mass political pardons? Tell me in the comments. If you want more breakdowns that separate legal principle from political spin, subscribe and share this with someone who thinks "I'll follow the law" is a complete answer when the law already demands more.